Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Module 1, Lesson 1, right? We'll be tackling chapters 1 and 2. Okay, so our agenda for today, we'll first check over the textbook because the textbooks is pretty short. So we'll read off from the textbook and summarize through the lecture slide. And then we'll then discuss about the hands-on practice, right? Just a quick reminder for now is we only want to submit Python code in the hands-on in the GitHub. So meaning the GitHub is only for hands-on practice submission. Apologies if there's was a breakdown in communication where students submitted their muddiest point. Um, just for a reason for that because for us to check it, it's hard. It requires the checker to do like 3 to 4 clicks to even just view the muddiest point. So apologies if we still go to the manual route where we go to emailing because it's going to be faster where we can just click once and open the muddiest point submission from the students. And again, I'll keep reminding that so we don't miss that out. Okay, so again, let's start off with the textbook. So share that screen. Okay, so we start off with the concept of service management, right? So the first word that we hear is service. And service is pretty generic, right? It's pretty general. So even this usage is correct. So when we say service in this context, it means literally everything, right? So it could be a service to the external customer, a service to the internal customer, right? A service to a system, right? And so on and so forth. And then everything that requires you to interact with or to give um, to help something, to support with something. So that's giving a service, right? So we do want to manage that service so that we have a good process to do things, right? We don't just try to, okay, here's a problem, and then everyone just tries to fix that problem, and we might end up spending or wasting resources if we did not manage that properly, right? Even though we have fixed the problem. Okay. So, going back to the text, right? Service management describes a way of working within an organization that helps to deliver value, right? So, again, that's the point. You provide the service, you need to deliver value. If you provided a service that doesn't add any value, so that service is not implemented or not done correctly, right? To deliver value to the organization's customer, again, customer could be internal, external, right? So it is worth spending time analyzing its definition, right? Along with some of the related concept. Again, so when we always go talk about management, we do need to dissect what each processes or each service or each category would be responsible for something, right? We don't just want to say, well, everything is service management, right? There's some planning, there's some execution, right? There's some feedback or evaluation. Okay. So here's an example, right? In today's world, IT is fully integrated part of everyone's life, right? Not when we say IT, it's not only for business or enterprise or organization. It is integrated part of everyone's life because us we consume technology like almost every minute, right? Like right now we're consuming or using DingTalk as a way to conduct our class, right? And again, the company who owns DingTalk, right, is basically making sure that the service, this video conference service, is working properly, right? There are no issues, especially if us, the customer, paid for that service, right? So we would have some expectations, okay? And as we stated here, whether using smartphone, right? So we bought it, right? Withdrawing cash from an ATM, we do want when we withdraw the cash, it functions correctly, right? If we withdraw 100, let's say, yen, we don't want our account to be deducted for like 200 yen, right? Or maybe if we try to withdraw and it doesn't work, we don't want that. Paying bills, booking tickets on the internet, right? So for concerts, IT is present in everything we do. It opens, plays a supporting role, right? And you always hear about IT support, people calling through customer support. So those are part of service management. So we don't even think about what we are using until it stops working. Yep. So next is in modern business organization, we see the same reliance on IT and IT enabled service. When we say reliance, meaning they are dependent, right? They require the IT services for the businesses to function, right? To operate, to contact customer, to sell to the customer, right? And as well as every department in the organization, from finance and customer service through to logistics, right? Relies on IT to carry out its role effectively and efficiently. You would always hear these two terms that they always need to be effectively and efficiently, right? You want to create the best service not only to your external customer but to your internal customers as well, right? Effectiveness refers to whether IT is able to achieve its objectives, right? Efficiency refers to whether IT uses appropriate amount of resources. So objective is sometimes pretty easy. Did it resolve, right? Did the IT was able to commit to that objective? We can go back to the example where, for example, let's just go back to the ATM machine, right? The objective of the ATM machine is to have the correct transaction, right? Maybe it takes you just 1 second and you can see the transaction, get the cash, and also it would reflect to your online banking app, right? So that's the objective. Now, the efficiency now would refer to whether the IT uses an appropriate amount of resource. So let's say you were able to deliver that, let's say 1 second transaction, but let's say if the infrastructure to be able to reach that point maybe cost a lot of money, right? In such a way that the bank is not earning any money anymore, right? So let's say they spent a lot of like very, very fast server to give that very fast transaction. But again, if you end up wasting a lot of resources, that is also not an efficient IT service, right? You may still want to spend moderate amount as much as possible, a low amount of resources to have a great IT service. Okay, and here we go. Yeah, it did say here to use optimal amounts, right, of time, money, staff, etc. Right? So even the staff. Okay, so now more than ever, organizations need effective and efficient IT to survive, right? IT supports critical business processes that generate revenue, serve customers, and allow business goals to be achieved, right? Uh, a good example is when you go to a website, right? The standard for nowadays is maybe just 1 to 2 seconds. The website should load up pretty fast, right? If you do have a website that maybe loads 5 or 10 seconds, customers don't want to go to that website anymore, right? So the IT support or the infrastructure to support that should be able to achieve that, right, as a standard. So that's why it also drives to serve customers. At the same time, the IT department or IT organization is under more and more pressure to deliver better services. Why? Again, because competition, right? Someone is delivering a fast service, but a lot of other companies are doing faster service, right? And now it basically pushes the standard of fast web page, let's say, responses. Again, back in the days, it could be that the 5 seconds wait is normal and everyone is fine with it. But as soon as an organization, right, started creating like a fast loading website, people would flock to that. Hey, I want that fast website response as well. And then everyone goes through that route. And now the other companies now are pressured to deliver better services and often at a reduced cost, right? Because if you end up spending more money, you're not really getting an advantage. Okay, so it does need to find the balance between supply and demand, service cost, and service quality. Okay, next, so with that, let's say to make sure that IT can support business objectives properly, organizations need service management. Service management makes sure that the IT enabled services delivered to what the business needs when the business needs it, right? So, it's dropping in the chat. Just a quick good question is, have you ever uh, used or encountered IT service, right? And guys can just respond to the chat, and I can continue and go back and check the chat. Okay, so with effective support and good quality IT enabled services, organization can adopt bold strategies, right? It could be even risky strategies, right? Including the expansion of existing services and movement into new markets, right? Again, bold, it could mean a risky strategy. There's a good reward, but there's also a good chance of getting a loss, right? But that's how you can innovate and basically enter into new markets. And if you're successful and lucky, you basically reap the rewards. You get the rewards. Okay. With poor quality services, organization will struggle to deliver what they do now, let alone expand and offer anything new or exciting. Right. Now, when many organizations are adopting a strategy focused on digital transformation, this topic becomes even more relevant. Okay, so um, when we always check about what is Itil, what is ITSM, which is IT Service Management, we always hear Itil, right? And let me just see if I can grab a quick graph of how it looks like so that it sticks to everyone's mind that um, ITSM encompasses the ITIL service. Just hold on. Hold on. Okay, while that's loading, let's see. Yeah, while that's loading, I'll continue on. So why use ITIL service for service management, right? So Itil is basically a best practice, right? And was developed by the UK government, and now it's being used by both the public and private sectors globally. Okay, and but again, ITSM is not really restricted to only following ITIL, right? And it adopts many types of best practices and includes ITIL, right? Because ITIL is one of the more popular ones, right? That's quick image. So as you can see of the diagram that ITIL, right, is this best practice, and ITSM basically covers ITIL, and it would also include other best practices that was not mentioned here, which is not the focus of the text here. Okay, again, just to give you a grasp, is ITIL is part of ITSM. Okay, let's head back slide in textbook. Okay, so ITIL is not a prescriptive standard that must be followed, right? It means that it's not forcing you to follow that, right? Or it's not saying that you should use this standard always, right? Because for ITSM, right, and ITIL, they do want some flexibility, right? They always want to check the best current best practices, right, with the ongoing changes in technology, and not stick to saying that this is the right way, right? So it does not say what must be done in a service provider organization. What it means that, again, it does not say do this, right? It can provide you a framework so that you have a process, right, to enable your IT service instead of saying, well, this is how you do it, right? It's like these are the steps to do it, to do something that can achieve your goal. Okay. Okay, so there is no service certificate or award for successfully adopting ITIL in an organization. Again, the reason why is everyone expects that they follow the ITIL standard, right? So if everyone is expected, they're not really required to be awarded or certified, right? Okay, instead, ITIL is a framework. There you go. I mentioned it is a framework. It's a guide. It's a guide, right? Not a direction or a direct guide, right? Um, that organization can adopt and adapt to improve the way they deliver their IT enabled services, right? So adopt is basically borrowing, right? Adapt is basically being flexible enough, right, to change, to respond to changes, right? Okay, ITIL is widely recognized source of best practice. It supports organization as they deliver services that meet their customers' needs at a price the customer is willing to pay. Okay. Again, as you may know that we tend to have a lot of free apps, right? But there are mostly subscription-based model where people pay, let's say, a premium. They may pay monthly or a one-time payment to basically get the services, right? Okay. In today's economic climate, organizations cannot afford to stand still. They need to review their performance and compare it to their competitors and make sure they are improving constantly, right? So once you are delivering your IT services, it's very, very important to get metrics for how efficient you are processing it, and also getting feedback from the customer, right? So both of those feedback are very helpful, and make sure when they come back to your organization, you do your best to incorporate them and improve your existing process, right? In that way, you can be always at the good part of the competition where you're not falling behind and you're always on top of everything, right? Okay, using best practice available in the public domain can support internal improvement. This thinking doesn't apply to private sector, but also public sector as well. Okay, yep. So for government agency, even though they don't really get profit, but they do need to provide that quality of service, right, as a demand from their citizens. Okay. Okay. So, brief background of Itil. Um, it is developed by UK, 1980s, right, to help improve IT-enabled services, IT projects, and they have this agency called the Central Computer and Telecommunications Agency, right? It basically developed a framework, right, to have an efficient and financially responsible use of IT resources in a government environment, right? So again, because it was interesting that the framework came first from the public sector, again, because usually government do try to always save money, right? So that they don't end up using a lot of taxpayers' money. Okay. The earliest version of ITIL was called Government Information Technology Infrastructure Management. That is so long. Okay, but was very different from ITIL. So in 2000, Microsoft, right, a very big computer company, used ITIL to develop Microsoft Operations Framework, right? So as you would see that ITIL have several versions, right? They don't change it every year. They change it once in a while, right? So they had the version 2 in 2001, right? Where they added service support and service delivery, right? And a lot of organizations have basically adopted that as well, right? To again, they even took training to achieve that certification. Again, individuals can get ITSM certification, right? Organizations do not get that. Okay. So after 6 years, in 2007, right, the version 3 of ITIL expanded it, right? They now have five, right? The service strategy, the service design, service transition, service operation, and continual service improvement. And those are part of the service lifecycle. Okay. And we have the newest version, which is ITIL 4, right? And it's focused to be integrated with other management practices such as Agile and DevOps, right? Again, Agile is a contrast to waterfall method. As I've explained last time, the waterfall method is you do the planning and all the execution for a long duration of period, and then you um, now show that to the customer and get that feedback, right? Agile is making that shorter and getting feedback more quickly, right? I guess I can show a quick um, picture so to help everyone. Let's see. Hold on, hold on. Okay, looks like this is a good picture. And let me change my share. Where is that? Okay. Okay, so the left-hand side is the waterfall method, and the right-hand side is the agile methodology, right? So waterfall has requirements, design, implementation, verification, maintenance, right? For agile, it's basically sprints. Oops, right? So you start with analyzing, then planning, design. So same here, designing, then testing. When they deploy, they get feedback and they go back to planning right away. And usually, this agile iteration is has like sprints, let's say 4 weeks instead of like 3 months. Most organizations follow the agile methodology, right? Pictures like these, right? But there are some use cases where waterfall still works, right? Let's say building a rocket ship, right? You couldn't really show a prototype, right? Because that's a really big project, right? So you do want to make sure that you have planned it very well. You have check all the risks, right? Check all the stakeholders, the requirements before executing, right? And again, the hope with that is you only get one chance after that project to launch the rocket and make sure that it works, right? As for the agile, it's good for, let's say, applications where you can just break things and fix it right away, right? Because even there's this comment about break things fast. Fast. No, sorry. Break things fast, right? So it's from Mark Zuckerberg, right? The creator of Facebook. Move fast and break things. That's the motto, right? Again, it could be changing, but back in the days, but what he's basically saying that um, you'd rather build something fast, right? You could either break it or it's not completely correct, right? But if you're able to show it to your customers, right, and show that new feature, that is way better than, let's say, spending maybe 3 months or a year, and when you show it, it's too late, right? Customers doesn't want it anymore, right? And that's like part of the agile way of things where they get feedback. Okay, let's see. Anytime, let me know if there's anything unclear. Let's see. Where's that? Okay, here. Okay, so another reminder that Itil is not academic and theoretical. It is based on the experience of ITSM practitioners. So experience, right? Experience of the people who are working in the industry. Offers a practical approach, which is very good, instead of like always theoretical, right? That has evolved over many years. The introduction of a value system focus in ITIL 4 means organization must concentrate less on technology and more on how to create value with either internal or external customers, right? Because a misconception, meaning people usually think that when we say ITSM, well, to provide good service, we just throw them the latest and greatest technology. That's not all the case, right? You always want to be practical. You do want to make sure that you focus on improving the process and, again, not just improving the technology, because, again, you can improve the technology and end up being making the process complex and wasteful, right? Okay, so common processes and practices and a strong service management framework to help you support the focus on value, right? Itil is successful because it is vendor neutral, right? Again, when we say vendor neutral, it means I'll give you an example. Let's say it's not Microsoft who developed it, and now it's will be a bit biased on Microsoft. Maybe also a bit biased to saying that use the services of Microsoft to have a good IT service, right? So it tends to be vendor neutral, right? So it did say it's not linked to one supplier, one technology, or one industry, right? So it's not, let's say, linked to Microsoft in the computer industry. It's not linked to, let's say, McDonald's in the fast food industry, right? Because again, any type of organization across industries require ITSM. Okay, it is non-prescriptive, right? Organizations need to adopt and adapt the elements of ITIL that work for them and their customers, right? They cannot just go ahead and use and it will be magic, right? They have to tailor fit it to their customers' needs, meaning they still have to tweak the framework. They still have to listen to their customers to ensure that they are delivering value added IT services, right? So, best practice, it already mentioned up there, draws experience from service management practitioners across the globe, right? So, what is best practice? It's basically proven activities or processes that has been successfully used in multiple organizations, right? An example of a best practice is, let's say, the best practice for implementing password complexity. Across the board, many would say that the best practice would have uh, symbols, characters, special characters, right, or long phrases as a best practice for your password. Okay, ITIL is seen as preferable to the proprietary knowledge that builds up inside organizations and the minds of staff members. Proprietary knowledge isn't usually documented in a consistent way. It exists because it has built up over time. It means it is not challenged or improved and can create real risk if an experienced staff member leaves and takes their proprietary knowledge with them. Okay, so it means that when you do incorporate ITIL right to your organization, you do want to make sure that you build the knowledge base for the whole organization in such a way if let's say a senior member leave, right, everyone still knows how to do it, right? So just avoid having a an expert and the expert knows everything and only him knows everything, so that is risky to the business, right? Okay, let's see. Okay, so value. So organizations or companies either provide products or services, right? And those products and services need to add value to the consumers, right? Or else why did we buy them, right? In the first place, right? Value is the perceived benefits, usefulness, and importance of something, right? So again, if let's say a product and service, let's say, may sound silly or may sound useless to someone, but if there's, let's say, a lot of people or other people think that it has benefits for them, then definitely buy into that product or service, right? For example, let's say some people would say, buying buying let's say buying let's say League of Legends skin, right? Let's say the aesthetics, right? The changing of the costumes and colors for your heroes in Dota 2 or League of Legends is, some people may say, useless, right? But again, for some people, they do see the benefit of it adding the aesthetics, right? The looking good, like making you feel good, right? So there's still a supply and demand. There's still that service, right? And then again, other people can argue just for fun, right? Not really to offend anyone, that they can say, well, people, let's say, color their nails and spend money on those nails, and it only takes a few days and it goes away. So it's kind of the same thing as well, right? Next is some products and services are directly purchased by consumers, such as bank accounts and mobile phones. If a consumer doesn't feel that they are receiving value, the service provider organization will know very quickly, because the consumer will choose a different product or a service, probably from a rival organization, right? So even if we go to the fast food service industry, let's say you have McDonald's, right? And let's say what's a good another KFC, right? Say you have both fast food chains, and if let's say KFC takes always like 20 minutes to get your order, whereas McDonald's takes like 5 minutes to take the order, and both of them provide, let's say, the same type of burger or close type of burger, then most people would go away from KFC and go to McDonald's, that because they can provide faster service, right? And now, if you always also think about it, how can they provide faster service? Is they have basically improved their ITSM, right? They could have improved their processes, right? So to make them more efficient. Okay, where the service relationship is defined less clearly, the service provider organization, again, that is the company, right? This is any company, might have to work harder to find out if their consumers feel that they are receiving value. So there's an example. The television package that you pay might include a news channel that you don't watch because you feel that it's biased, meaning it's only leaning towards, let's say, pro government all the time or always anti government all the time. So you think that it's biased, you don't watch it, right? So you consume news via the internet instead. So now that news channel doesn't even get the feedback, because they are not directly interacting with the customer, where it's part of the whole package, right? As there you go, it says here, it's difficult for them to measure because it's through another provider that you did get that service, right? Okay, last paragraph here. Value encompasses, right? So it is including more than just value for money, right? Some products and services are more expensive than others. For example, luxury products, right? But consumers choose them because they save time or convey status. Example, if people would start buying Apple products, right? It could be maybe it's faster, but sometimes it's just because having the Apple product is a prestige, right? It elevates your status, right? People think that you have the iPhone, and people go, "Wow, he's rich," or "Wow, he's slick," right? Things like that. Okay. Um, Service provider organizations need to understand what it is that consumers value about their products and services, right? Because they might add value to the products and services, but if that is not what the customer wants, right, then it fails. Let's go back to the McDonald's, to the KFC example. Let's say the KFC example already is delivering, or the service time is 20 minutes, right? And what they did instead is they make it cheaper, or maybe make it taste a little better only, right? People wouldn't still wait 20 minutes for that, right? So, but there can be two ways as well. Maybe they can shorten their time, or maybe if they can produce a product that McDonald's can't have, right? Let's say a super cheap or super big burger, people would wait for those, right? Or chicken. Services also need to create value for the service provider to allow them to continue to provide the service in the future. Okay. All right. So I think this is a good stopping point for now. And let's take a 15-minute break. And let's be back after 15 minutes and see you guys. So we'll try to finish the rest of the chapters and then move on to lecture slides, okay, as a summary. Okay, so we are now going to talk about service management. So we talked about service. We can quickly just scroll back. Talked about value, talked about Itil, the importance of service management. Okay, so we now have some of the underlying concepts and terminology to can now discuss service management. Okay, service deliver values. Services deliver value to consumers. If a service isn't carefully managed, value might be less or might not be delivered at all. So we've been mentioning this. An IT-enabled service needs to be measured, monitored, and maintained, right? It does not end where you just provide the service and you don't care about it, right? You do want to monitor metrics, right? And you do want to get customer feedbacks, right? You do want to maintain your IT services to make sure it's up and running, right? It is up capacity, right? It is available to continue working effectively. An IT organization can't just put a service into the live environment and just forget about it, which I've mentioned. So Itil provides good practices for managing IT-enabled services, right? It doesn't matter what job you have in IT, your role is part of the overall service that is being offered to the consumers. Okay, pretty straightforward. Most modern organizations rely on IT to be effective. They expect IT to be available and responsive, right? That is basically you are able to interact, and anytime you want to interact with it, it's there, and communicate with them regularly, right? Technology alone does not deliver a good service. This is one of the important phrases that you have to know, right? Even though it's ITSM, it's not all about technology. It's the process, the processes, right? Technology needs to be managed to meet customers' needs. The need for a more holistic approach to IT-enabled services that is reflected, right, in the four dimensions of service management described in the Itil 4 governance, right? So when we say holistic, it's basically you look at the whole part, right? You look at the whole instead of a part, right? So that's what we mean by you need to have a more like a higher overview approach or a big approach to it instead of just being specific to one thing, right? Okay. So the four dimensions, we'll be mentioning that in the later lessons, right? So for service management definition, it says it's a set of specialized organizational capabilities for enabling value for customers in the form of services. Okay. So you provide service to whom? To the customer. What do you provide? Value, right? And how do you enable that value? It's using this um, set of specialized organizational capabilities. Capabilities refers to the ability of an organization to carry out a task or activity. So it's like, as humans, you can say, I am capable of doing the work, right? I am capable of delivering the product, right? Or providing the service. It's the same thing for the IT service. It's capable of carrying it out, right? For that service or activity. So the more mature the organization, meaning it's not only older but wiser, right? So more older and wiser organization, the better its capability should be, right? Capabilities will be based on organization's experience of customer, processes, services, tools, market conditions, etc. So everything that revolves around it, right? Everything that interacts. This experience grows over time, where an organization has low or immature capabilities. It may choose to source capabilities from an external organization, right? So this is especially true if you do have organizations that are small, they don't have a lot of resources, but they do want to have a more mature, let's say, service, right? A service management. So they can basically hire a third party or an external organization to do that for them, right? It could be something like this, right? Let's say you are a new company and you don't have resources to have customer service representative. You can basically hire a company to do that for you, right? An organization can only develop these specialized organizational capabilities when it understands the nature of the value, the nature and scope of the stakeholders involved, meaning the business owners, right? And how value creation is enabled through services. So, time and time again, value, services, right? um, what do the stakeholder wants? Stakeholders could be external customer or internal customers, right? Okay. So as a professional practice, right, it is supported by extensive body of knowledge, experience, and skills that has built up in the IT industry, matured and developed a service focus. So I think this is more of checking resources, right? There are training, certification schemes, so we'll skip over some of these, right? ISO standards, blogs, forums, and it mentions the Itil 4 approach. So just to add, where the advancement of service management, it's due to the increasing complexity of service delivery. That's why it advanced. Okay. And more organizations are using shared services or have outsourced some or all IT provision to external organizations, right? Because this would help a company focus on uh, could focus on value added processes, right? Instead of spending time on their ITSM, right? As the number of stakeholders involved with the service delivery increases, definitely more sophisticated service management is required to control them, right? Because again, you would now have a lot of different expectations, a lot of different demands, right? As supply chains gets more complex, service management practices need to adapt, right? Increased complexity of delivery has strengthened and improved service management as well as imposing greater challenges. Okay. So just definition like organization. These are person, group, people, and legal entity, government. I think most of you guys know what an organization means, so we can skip that part. So this is a good thing to check. So organization historically didn't listen to their customers. They saw their relationship with customer as being one directional, right? They give the product and that's it, right? Distant, right? They even don't know who their customer is without feedback. The customer couldn't even give a feedback through, there's no way to contact them, right? Now, very popular, I mean, the common standard is to have a two-way relationship, right? It could be through customers calling, it could be through social media, right? Or a ticketing service. And then value is co-created, right? Because that feedback adds value to the company for the improvement and also for the customers so that they get, let's say, the correct product or the correct level of service, right? Or an improvement of the service. Okay. So there you go. Because now we have a lot of, with the advent of the internet, right? Meaning with the development of the internet and the online services, it allowed organizations to capture feedbacks from their customers very easily, right? Okay. For example, in the past, a new piece of software may have released every 12 months based on an aggregated set of feedback. Think of it like the total or the collected set of feedbacks and updated requirements. Now, service provider organizations can track what buttons customers are clicking, right? They do know how much time you spend on, let's say, a certain product, right? Or the page where their eyes are moving. So even I here, I did sign up for a lot of what they called user research, where I basically uh, go to a company, right, and they would show me, let's say, their web application and web product, and they would tell me to interact on it on my own and discuss what areas of improvement I can suggest, right? Or do I feel good about it? Do I feel bad about it? And what's interesting with that is I also experienced where they did have a tracking mechanism where there was a camera tracking my eye movements, right, in the monitor and as well as the clicks, right? So that was very interesting. So they can release the software more frequently, perhaps many times a day, to respond to the feedback they have been monitoring. And again, this is possible if we are using the agile methodology where you grab feedback and improve your process right away. Okay, co-creation focuses on customer experience and interactive relationship, right? So you want active customer involvement, right? Even in some games, like I really like the indie games or when they release alpha beta versions where they involve their customer, which are gamers, right? And they have the customer give them some feedback, what they like, what they didn't like, as well as what are some of the bugs, some improvements, and if they did improve on that, the customer would really like that, right? And they are more willing to engage with that gaming company, right? It's the same thing where they have the Sonic the Hedgehog movie where they released a trailer and the animation was very awful, right? And then they got the customer feedback and they changed it and the customers loved it. Okay. So that is very valuable. Okay. So again, that's why it's two-way because it not only helps the company gain a better reputation, uh, gain more profits, right? Gain more customers, right? But also the customers become more happy And now the value that they perceive with that product or service, they're now okay with that, right? Each product and service is a part of web of service relationships, right? As we go deeper, we could see that a lot of services are interconnected, right? Most organizations act as a customer and a service provider as part of service delivery, buying and selling, consuming and supplying services and service elements. Okay. Yes, as we mentioned, when we say co-creation, both consumer, customers, right, and the service provider organization mean the company should get value. So here's an example. You use a travel agent to book a holiday. Let's say I go to a web app and let's say I use a platform, not the airline, okay? Let's say there's a platform where I can book a holiday, right? The outcome that you, the consumer, want is the holiday of a lifetime, and the travel agent wants to help you achieve this, right? So you should need to share information about your budget, desired location, activities, planned dates, etc. And then travel agent will provide you with options, right? Given the information. They will use other service providers like hotels, right? So they can now in their platform, they can bring in hotels, airlines, transfer companies to now build that package or that service for you, right? And that basically creates the value, right, that you want from your trip. If you, as the consumer, withhold important information from travel agent, they are unlikely to able to meet your needs. For example, if you did not specify what your budget is, they might have given you a very expensive hotel that you can't afford, and then you ended up not being able to book your holiday. You receive value as a consumer, but the travel agent also receives value, perhaps through profit, repeat business, and word of mouth, which happens every time. So look, it's fast. We're now on chapter 2, and we now would like to define the roles in service management, right? Who are the people in service management? So this includes the service provider, right, who provides the service, stakeholders, which is the customers, right? Who are these customers? The service relationship, right? And how we define that relationship depends, right? Consumer. So we do have the customer, the user, the sponsor, right? We have the stakeholders and value types. So a lot of like similar terms, and we hope that it's more broken down, right? Okay, so what it's saying that if there are clear roles, right, then we can basically have clear responsibilities as well, and that would make it an effective service management organization, right? So what it means by that is we don't want, let's say, when we go back here, let's say I am also a stakeholder and then I am also a service provider. So that confusion now is hard and you don't know how to deliver your service properly, or you don't even know who you are, right? So again, if roles are not clear, that's a big problem because tasks may be duplicated, right? There might be another person in your team that is already doing that same thing, right? Or not done at all, right? So a single person can fulfill many roles, right? Which is fine as long as you define it, right? So next, many organizations are that are new to Itil and service management. Look at all the Itil practices and panic. Yeah, because basically when you first read about Itil and ITSM, it's like there's a lot of things you have to learn about, a lot of different technologies. But if you do just try to digest or study it one at a time, you'll understand that, hey, we already have been doing this. It's just that now we had a chance to define what are the things that we always interact on a daily basis, right? So they think they need to hire hundreds of new staff to fulfill all the roles, confusing a job or person with a role, right? Smaller organization, again, a person may need to do a lot of things. Okay. So yeah, we don't need to talk about it. It's just saying that we just really need to clearly define roles. I think the last one is important, right? The desk staff might have roles within incident management, access management, and request fulfillment. But we can discuss that later on. So the service provider, right, can be part of the same organization as a consumer, right? This is again the internal customer. Let's say the sales team, right? Maybe the sales team needs their customer relationship management system up and running, right? The IT department is the one providing that service to make sure that that application is available for the sales team so that they can do their work properly, efficiently, track their customers, and so on and so forth, right? Or an external organization, right? Let's say a software solutions provider selling to customers, right? Uh, Easy example, let's say Microsoft products to the customers, right? A service provider organization must understand who its customers or consumers are and which are other stakeholders are part of its wider service relationships. Okay, so let's see about this one. This is no need to check on this. Doesn't really add for us. So now the stakeholder, right? It's basically a person, organization that has an interest or involvement in our organization, right? Product, service, practice, or other entities. It can be anyone. So here we go again. It can be internal or external, right? So if a service provider organization doesn't understand what its consumers wants, right, it has no chance being able to deliver services to meet their needs, right? The organization needs to build relationships with stakeholders to improve communication and really get to know them and their requirements, right? It is important to remember that the term stakeholder covers more than just consumers, right? So these are example stakeholders. We have suppliers, partners, shareholders, and investors, auditors, employees, right? So suppliers, let's say those are providing us, like, let's say we outsource some of our IT service, right? Or maybe we outsource some of our products, the raw materials, right? Shareholders are basically the owners of the company, right? Auditors are basically they go to the company and check for maybe your your balance sheet, your profits and loss statement, right? To check for compliance, right? For rules and regulation, and also employees, right? So there are many techniques available for stakeholder mapping. So they said just to do an internet search. Huh, funny. So relationship, it's a cooperation between the service provider and the service consumer, right? Service relationships include service provision, provision meaning it's providing as well, right? You make it available, right? You provision that service and someone would consume that service, meaning use that service. And again, the management of service relationship. So we need to change our way of thinking, right? From making a sale to managing a relationship, right? Because if you only think about sale, okay, I just want to earn money. And yes, let's say you did earn money from that customer, but the customer really felt bad, unfair, was not supported. You gave him a bad product, right? And that would can have serious repercussions, right? Meaning that could impact your reputation very bad or your repeat sales, right? So again, especially here in America and the USA, they do try to manage their customer relationship a lot. Like, it's super easy to return items that you don't want, right? Even in the food industry, if there's something wrong, they can easily take it out to your total bill or total cost of your food, right? So, because they do want to manage that relationship properly and give a good customer experience. So, okay, so when an organization is new or immature, it will chase every single customer it can possibly find, right? Even if that customer may be difficult to work with or toxic, right? So that's why, for example, even in Amazon, they did try to uh, drive down the cost. They try to provide the 1 day or 2 day shipping, even though it's very expensive, right? They try to make the returns super easy, right? Even though they were at a loss most of the time, but because they have acquired a lot of customers, now they can command whatever price they want, right? If there are customers they don't want to work with, they can just remove them. It won't impact them really, right? So managing service relationship requires, again, the organization to provide or allocate time and resources, right? They call this like after sales, right? Service, right? After a purchase has been made to, or a service has been provided, right? After sales services. Automation can also help you with this process, right? For example, you might receive a reminder when your automobile insurance or health insurance is due for renewal. Okay. So that's also a service, that notification. Effective service relationship management brings benefit to both, again and again, both the organization and the consumer. And the plan is the organization wants uh, customers to be loyal to their brand, right? So they should plan for a long-term relationship. Okay, so the service consumer, right, is a person or organization receiving a service. Most organization will act as service provider and service consumer as part of normal service delivery. Okay? For example, as a consumer, they buy components to build a service. They supply as a service provider. Okay? Consumer is a broad term that includes customer, user, and sponsor. So, role, um, customer is a role that defines the requirements for a service, takes responsibility for the outcomes of service consumption. User is the role that uses services, and sponsor is the role that authorizes budget for service consumption. Can also used to describe an organization or individual that provides financial or other support for an initiative, right? So sponsor, you would see this a lot for even like small project ideas, app development. You do have like a project sponsor, right? In this case, it's called the service consumer sponsor. Okay. And we can define this furthermore, right? Because a user, the role that uses services, okay? We'll get into this deeper, okay? So one individual might act as customer, user, sponsor, right? For example, an individual, a customer who enters into a mobile phone contract can fulfill all those roles, right? And then again, the roles can be separate. Example, there's a purchasing department who procures or buy mobile phones for staff in a sales team, right? Because when you work in the company and let's say they provide you the mobile phone, you don't directly purchase it, right? There's someone who is um, responsible for that one. Mhm. So to clearly supports better communication, relationships, and better stakeholder management. Okay, the consumer can have different and conflicting expectation about value, agreeing essential requirements and how much they are prepared to pay. This is an example again. There's a provide new laptops to a sales representative. So sponsor works in procurement, right? Has little understanding of the sales role. Oh boy, that's not going to be good. Its goal is to purchase the cheapest laptops possible. So now it's bad because they didn't even check what does the sales representative require. Like what type of laptop, what type of application, what memory, what storage, right? GPU, CPU, okay? Next, the customer is the sales team leader because he is the person who wants the team to be happy but has been office based for some years and has lost sight of the mobile workers requirement. So even the boss doesn't know what the sales representative needed in the field, meaning when they go outside to meet customers, right? So the users or the last one to really get the product is the sales representative, right? They will be the one to receive the laptop, and because again they didn't ask what the user really wants, so they are likely to be unhappy. Okay, so example of stakeholders and value types: receives benefits, receives funding, loyalty from consumers, for service provider. Here is interesting for employees, right? Job satisfaction, financial and non-financial rewards, personal development, and so on and so forth. Right? These are pretty standard and straightforward. Okay, um, so this is one of the project management tools called a Racy model, right? It does help people define who is responsible or accountable, consulted, and informed, right? Whenever there's a specific task, right, or resources. So I think before we go here, okay, let's see. Let me search maybe a more better image. Let's see. Okay, I saw one. Hold on. And I saw another one. Okay, let me change my screen. Mm, so let's look first in a more simple one, I guess. Okay, this is a simple one. let's say there is a project to be delivered, right? And again, the words are, let's define them again. Responsible is the team member who would do the work, right? Maybe zoom this a bit more and complete the task, right? Person that's responsible. Okay. And then next is accountable, right? Who delegates the work and provides final review. So that means it's like the boss, right? So let's say I assign someone to do it for me, but I'm the one kind of like responsible, but accountable. It's more like I'm still the one to be blamed if something happens, right? Consulted is where you find someone to get an input, right? So it to add value, right? Because maybe they're an expert for that domain or that field, right? The last one is informed. Those are the persons that you need to keep in the loop. Okay. So here's an example. Let's say um, they have a project to be delivered, and you have the following people. You have a project manager, strategist, designer, front end developer, back end developer, right? So design the site map, right? And design the wireframes, you see them similar, right? You basically consult the project manager, right? And then you do the strategist is responsible, right? And then the designer is accountable, and the front end and back end developers are only informed. The reason for that is because they don't really need to work on that yet, right? But they do need to know it, right? And this design sitemap is the strategist for now. And when now we go to wireframes where they create the layout of the website, now the layout, who's responsible to that? It's the designer, right? So this one just shifted. Project manager is still consulted because they want to see if that's still it's part of the project scope. Is it meeting the requirements? Okay. Now, when they are creating the style guide, maybe for their coding, right? Now, the one responsible still is the designer, right? And they now consult the front end developer, right? Because front end developer would then work on the website, right? And now you can see another shift with the code templates where and you can see the project manager is now accountable for those, right? Because this is now like the end product of the project, right? Strategist is still informed, right? Designer is consulted because he's the one who created the style, right? And the front end developer is now responsible to creating those code templates. And also the back end developer is consulted. So that's just a simple breakdown, right? So here's another complex one, but we don't need to go deep on each of them, right? So you can see there's the roles, right? And they also put them in the leadership, the project team members, the sub team, external resources, and they also have roles inside of those categories. And this now are the task, right, on the column and the phases, right, of the activities, right? Okay, so let's go. Okay, Racy models. So we can skip some of these and just mention the important parts, right? Only one person can be accountable for any task. They have the overall authority for the task, but they cannot carry out the work. Any number of people can be responsible, right? Uh, these are the people that would get the work done, right, and report to the accountable resource. Sometimes resources are consulted to get tasks done, right, and others need to be informed. Yeah, so that should be it. Just a quick overview for Racy Model. And we're done with chapter 3. Okay, so let's do a quick review of the slides. And maybe let me just quickly download that instead. Okay, sharing. Okay, so before we do a summary, maybe I'll ask a question to the chat, right? Or maybe, yeah, we can ask a quick question to the chat. Let's say, okay, so what are some types of customers, right? Uh, we provide an industry and a customer. Okay, and we can, I guess, take a quick 15-minute break, and let's be back to do summary and HOP and also concept test later. And see you in a bit. Right. So we did start from the textbook, right? And because of that, we'll just do some of the summary and additional content from the slides, right? Um, so this is module 1, and we did talk a lot about the expectations between customer and client, right? Both of them should get value from one another, right? Um, Assess the value of different integrated service approaches in ITSM. We haven't really touched based on that. This is for the whole course. Deduce business needs and opportunity for process improvement. This is a recurring theme that you guys have to always think that ITSM, even though it's information technology, the focus should not be really just the technology. The focus should be on the process improvement. Okay. Evaluate IT processes and their importance to ITSM efficiency and effectiveness. We haven't touched on IT processes, but we mentioned that ITSM cares about being efficient and effective and not just solving the problem with being inefficient with solving the problem. Okay. Then collaborate, evaluate, and plan projects on a team, which we're doing another team presentation end of the course. So we have the service management, which we defined a lot of different terms before we come up to service management. We defined the service word, the value word, the consumers, right? Key concepts of organizations and values, right? Organizations could be individual, I mean, can be public or private, right? Value could be depending on the customer perception, right? And next, the Itil, big picture, the service value system as well. So the definitions, just to summarize again, it's enabling IT customers, right, to realize value for the services, the for the IT organization, right? Okay. Again, to repeat that, so the IT organization should deliver, right, the services to the customer with value. Okay. We mentioned about value many times. You can skip that. So organization, single team company, right? And there are responsibilities, authorities, and relationships. So value definition, right? The perceived benefit. Some want cost, some only speed, some want only quality, some people want both, some people want all, right? Again, the more you try to hit the three of them, the more complex it is to implement or to achieve. However, once you achieve that, it gives you a good return, right? Service definition, you already mentioned that enabling value co-creation between customer and the service provider, right? Facilitating outcomes that customers want to achieve without the customer having to manage specific costs and risk. So there's a lot of ITSM frameworks. The core of what they're following is the Itil, but there's a lot of things, right? So there's Six Sigma, right? Lean, ISO, DevOps, and as you can see, like for example, Six Sigma and Lean, those are process improvement frameworks as well, right? And ITIL, we have mentioned already, it has been the best practice. It was developed in the UK before, right, by the public sector to improve their IT services, and now has been adopted, and it's now in version 4, right, as of 2019. And why ITIL? Because it's just a framework. It's not prescriptive. It's not saying that this is the correct way to do it, right? It could be the best one only for now. It could change, and you can also tailor fit it to your needs, meaning change the framework to your needs. It's not rigid, meaning it's not fixed. It is also vendor neutral, so meaning there's not single or not no company is dictating what ITIL should be, right? It's not biased to a product, right? So again, it means that it's not built by Amazon or Tencent, right? And continually updated body of knowledge, so they do update it, right? And again, it provides guidance, tools, and templates. And there is what they call the service value system, right? Where there's opportunity and demand, and you basically have this service value chain, and outside there's governance and practices and guiding principles for continual improvement, and you keep iterating over that, so the demand and the value has some link, right? Again, we'll be touching this more on later chapters. The pestle, if you guys have encountered SWOT analysis, like the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, that's for basically assessing your own self, even or company, to your competitors, right? Or to the market. And pestle is a more focus on different aspect, right? On, let's say, political, economic, social, technological, legal, environmental. And again, those are the external factors that can affect your organization. Okay. And ITIL, we have touched some of these already, right? The value as the core, right? Without the perceived value, there's no sense to provide the service, right? And then it could be a product or it could be a service, right? And it is basically not just IT, as you can see. It's belonging to the organization, partners, and processes, right? You put them now together, right, in one big machine. But again, they are also influenced by external factors, right, which is the pestle. As you can see, the external factors are here, right? What do we mean by that? So let's say we can be super efficient on extracting data, but because of political factors, because of data privacy, we can't really do that a lot, right? So those are your some of the influence that you may have, right? So very short slide, those are references, and we can move on to the hands-on. Okay, so for the hands-on, what we'll do is we'll do the browser and explain some things. Okay, so first and foremost, please don't upload other assignments unless we basically change it. But for now, let's just stick to just sending over hands-on practice exercise, right? So first off, I can show a correct way that one of the students made. So this is what I'm expecting. So there's the person's own branch, and then inside of that branch, uh, the student has the folder under the student's name, and there's basically a folder called Module 1, right? And when the student would submit Module 2, the student will create Module 2 and basically do some submission. So one of the things basically asks some questions or help from uh, Yu Cho Hong, right? This student, because this student created it correctly, right? Don't worry if you did some wrong push of code or accidents. So it's totally fine because we are just learning. And the more important part is you got your files here and we can check, right? So the reason why we introduce Git and GitHub is for students to uh, get a practice of pushing code to the online repository. I know that GitHub and other repositories are the main purpose is to use for collaboration, but because it's really hard to execute on a classroom level. So for now, we just want you to get a feel of how to push code in your own branches. Okay. Now that we have that, also I restricted for everyone not to do not to merge a pull request. So at the end of the day, what we just want is I would go here, right? Let's say one of the student branches and check the submission, and that should be it, right? Now, my next step now is to explain the process, right? So, what I would do first is, let's say I'm a student, right? This is the repo, and I would open up. I would first click this, right? I can do HTTPS and click copy. Okay, and the next thing I would do is open up a terminal or Git Bash for Windows, right? And let me just open up a terminal and then share that screen there. Share that screen. Okay, so first thing I would do, I would basically do a git clone and paste that repository URL, right? Now that shows me that I successfully have that folder. I can check it with my ls command. It's too much. We did learn something cool that we can do some grep, maybe do is. And we now see that there's a folder, right? Or also they call this a project folder with the same repository name. Now, to go inside, I'll use the change directory command, which is cd. I can go cd to the repository, right? This is an additional configuration for me to show me which branch I am currently at. But for you guys, you can hit git branch to check where you are currently at, right? It would show you an asterisk to show which branch you are currently are, right? So now you can see, now let's see what are the current contents here, right? And because some students have merged to master, which is fine. This is fine. I don't really mind for now. So you see that I did grab the files from the online to my local machine, right? And now the first that I want to do is create a branch off of master. Why? Because we do want to practice that when you are now working using version control management system, you don't want to basically push code directly to master without any sort of review, right? So that is why we create our own branch. In my case, I can do git checkout b, and I'll just use my name, right? So git checkout meaning create a branch, and the option for that one is -b to create a new branch, right? And then the name that I want for my new branch. And once I hit enter, it now switches to the new branch. So it creates and switches. So what basically happens is it will basically create a new branch from master. When I say from master, I also get the same thing from the master branch, right? Okay, now that I have it, my first step is to create a new folder. And to create a new folder, I'm going to use the make directory command, which is mkdir, right? This is for Mac OS and Linux, or if you have Git Bash. And then I'll put my name here, right? The purpose of us creating our own name folder is if we accidentally merge it, it shouldn't like mess with other people's or other students' submission, right? Because you are just working in your own folder as well. Okay, we do want to go inside of that folder, right? And as you can see, there's no content, right? So this will be your usual setup now. So now when you are going to start submitting code, let's say in my case, I do need to open up a VS Code, let's say. So what I'll do so that it's simulating the same one, I open up a VS Code first. Hold on. And to the VS Code. And then in my VS Code, I would go ahead and open that folder. To open a folder, actually, I should have a menu up there. So, because I'm just sharing the app. So just go click on the top menu. There would be a file, and then there would be open. And then once open is up, you just want to open the folder that you created, right? So again, now you won't be seeing it because I'm just sharing the app. So hold on and let me just open that part. And it should be IS okay. And I'm now clicking open. And now my VS Code is restarting and opening that folder. And now you can see that one, right? Okay, I can also click open folder here if I want to open folder, just so you know. Now, right, I can now open a terminal here as well. I can do control tick. Control tick is basically the symbol to the right of number 1. Or there's also a menu up top called terminal, and click new terminal, right? You can't see it for now because I'm just sharing the app. Okay, so this one, as long as it's bash or you're using a similar one in Windows, you should be able to do the same commands like this one, right? You can still do the same commands like those, okay? Like clear. Now, if I'm working on my first assignment, I can go ahead and click create new file. Actually, there's a button here on the top, right? Make sure I click the folder first and click here. And let's just say hello world.py. And I start writing code. Print hello is470, right? For now, it's fine. And I hit save. One thing that I can check if I do git branch. Oh, no, sorry, not git branch. Git status. I would now see untracked files, right? So actually, I could go one step up and do git status again, right? It says the Clark No folder and all the other files inside is not yet tracked. What does it mean? So it's still not part of the version control, right? So how do we add that to the version control or to a new version? We can do a git add, git space add, meaning we want to put the current state to the staging area, right? We can specify the folder or file, or we can just do the dot, meaning everything in this directory, right? So we can do that. And if we check the status again, it's now saying changes to be committed, there's new file. So this file folder along with this file is now ready to be saved as a version, right? So if I now do a git commit -m, meaning message, this is also required to add a message. Let's say submission for module 1, right? It would now say file has changed one insertion, right? And let me clear that again. If I see git status, it means you are clean, your version is saved, and your local machine now has that version, okay? Another way that you can check is when you do, what's this, git, hold on, we did the git commit, git clear, okay? So now that we have that, we can now push it to the online repository with Git Push, and we do want to be specific on which branch. So Git Push to origin, and origin is configured to be the repository in GitHub, meaning that's we have the value of origin is the is470 file in GitHub. Okay, and then we do want to push it on that branch. Okay, now that you're good, I can, because now it pushes it to the online repository. So now you can see now there's a notification here, right? And it should create a branch, right? So now my local machine is in sync or up to date with the GitHub repository, which is our online version control, right? And the next thing you would do, usually, you would go ahead and click this pull request or this one. They go to the same page, but I can go here and compare and pull requests. And you can leave a message if you want. Click create pull request. And for here, everyone should be stopping at this point, and you should not be able to merge pull requests, right? For collaboration, this would be, if you're using it for, let's say, a collaboration, you would definitely first do a code review, and then someone would also merge it, okay? But for now, this should be good. If you do have a pending pull request, meaning a pull request that is not yet merged, anytime you push a code, it will basically add those commits to that same pull request. Okay, so for you guys, having an open pull request should be good for now, because if I would be checking your work, I would just be going to the student's branch and check their code, and if their code is working fine, right, and that should give you full credit. So the difference from this time around is you guys are not required to do a summary, but instead you are required to work on with the GitHub, right? So now I have explained the how to work with this one. I can now head back and explain how to work with GitHub. I mean, how does it work? Go back to the PowerPoint slide one more time. Let's draw some stuff. First, let's see. Let's create a shape or a line, something like this. Okay, and let's say the top part is, let's say this is GitHub, and let me just fix that later. Okay, and this is your computer, local machine, your computer. Okay, GitHub online. So you do also have your Git version control here. Okay. So the first thing that would happen is we do have a IS 470, something like fall 2020, I believe, right? And then we copy the URL. Okay. On our machine, in the terminal, right? We first go to use the command git clone, right? Be small case. And then we did, let me just grab the URL if I did have that. Okay, I don't think I had that. So let me just grab it quickly. Okay, I do a git clone. This is my first command, right? And let's just make it smaller for now. And what this does is creates a copy from online to local, right? And then the next command that we would do is we change directory to the project folder, which is this command. Okay, so that was our second step. And then the next thing that we did is we created a branch, right? Maybe let's put this up here so it makes more sense. And basically created a folder. To create a folder, you can also use the mkdir command, right? And use that. Let's say you add a file. Just another quick command for Mac OS is if I want to add a new file, is I would do the touch, say hello.py. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next where we add file or folder, files or folder to staging, right? So to do that, we do need to do git add dot, and then we do commit or save the version, right? And that needs to have the command the git commit, that's message, and whatever the submission number. And then we now want to execute another command called Git Push origin and the branch name. And now it will now go here. No more command. And then you do create a pull request. Okay, let's now put some arrows as a recap, and let's just move this a bit. Insert shape arrow, maybe a bigger arrow. This one, okay. So we first copy the URL and copy it into your local machine. Rotate that. Right, so from online you go to local, right? And we have done some steps to execute it. And then this part is the version control, right? And then we go up. And then we create a pull request. So pull request is here, right? And that should go back here, something like that, right? There's no error actually here. So now, if this is the first initial setup, right? This is initial setup process. If we do wanna, if we now have done the initial setup, we can now modify it. We no longer need to copy the URL because we already done. So we can say submitting for HOP02. Okay, so you don't need to do this. You already have a copy, right? You just need to open the folder, right? So now, maybe just make sure that you are in the folder. Plus the branch name. So folder, your own personal folder, right? Next is you still want to create a folder for the module submission. So you would now create a new folder called module, let's say 02. And let's say you do have added another file and world.py, and you would do the same thing. And you might not need to do a pull request, so this might be optional. So your process would be like this. Create the new folder, do add up your code files, and do the first two steps to update your local machine, the add and commit, and then push to GitHub. Okay, I hope that helps. If not, you are free to ask me questions anytime. If you need help as well, do email. But again, I would suggest asking some of your classmates as they have already correctly have done that. And I feel like most of you do know how to do it. It's just need to just clean up some of them. Okay, so that should be an overview for the hands-on practice. And we can discuss more of the code on the coming days. Okay. Um, so for now, do spend up some time, right? Maybe I'll just drop in 2 minutes before to end the class, and use this remaining time to talk to your maybe team members, right? And discuss about your team project. And it is really, really helpful if you do have questions about team project is to ask me, right? Because this is normal in classes where there's a team project, and if you don't understand, don't assume, right? Ask right away, right? Or else you might be writing something that is wrong, right? You might be writing that something that I don't value, right? So we're now talking about like service management. You give me your output, but that's not the thing that I want. So that's not valuable to me. Okay. So do continue working on your hands-on and maybe your knowledge check. So Dr. Dong will be helping me collect the muddiest points and knowledge check. And yep, keep working on it, and I'll be back 2 minutes before the class ends, and just to check up on you guys. See you later.